This is the video review of round 3. So we're going to start out a little bit differently today. So we're going to start out from the student side of how to tackle the next round and then review the results for the class. So in this sample team Z, the first thing you should do is you go to your overview page and you review your results. So we have listed here year 2 and year 3. So we can see the year-over-year improvements. So the sales revenues went up here for this team for 50%, earned 50 points. The debt ratios, quick ratio and debt ratios, were better managed, so those points were earned there as those debts were lowered. Now profit margins went from 51 to 56%. So if you remember from my Blackboard post, I had sent out a post about helpful hints to improve with the simulation, as well as all the previous videos. I described that you need to increase your profit margins. So increasing by 5% on the gross is very good. So I increased the gross by 5%, and I increased the operational only by 3% because I had to increase my advertising expenses mostly. And then my net increased by 2 percentage points or 12%. Now, having higher profit margins enables to have better results on everything compared to profits. So total asset turnovers is looking at assets and revenues. And I purchased a lot of assets this round, so I didn't expect a big amount of points to be earned here. Now, my return on equity, earnings per share, and return on assets, which is looking at assets to profits, did all improve. My market capitalization went up as that my stock price goes up. Book value went up. My forecasts were just a little off on economy. Overall, I ran a surplus, and I did have an improved investments in my operational investments. So I earned 563 points, which is about 100 points more than my goal. So after you review your overview, you should go to charts to see where you are on your total points. So if you go to charts and you go down to total points, you can find your team under total points. So this team here, Z, is at 1,700. So after 3 rounds, more than halfway to that goal of 2,500 points. And you'll see that the top teams here have close to 2,000 points. So after 3 rounds, they're within striking distance of getting the full points for the full grade. Now, if you reach your full points, it doesn't mean you stop working on the simulation, because you could lose points if you don't finish it out to the end of the simulation. So this is where you can see your total points. And if you are at 1,200 points or higher, which most teams are, I think there's only a handful of teams that are lower than 1,200 points. But if you're around 1,200 points or higher, you're well on track for the full grade for this simulation. Okay, so after the overview, you should go to the assessment. And this is where you could see how you're ranking. And so this team here is doing pretty well, except for total asset turnover. So there's some information here about capacity utilization. And I can see that total asset turnover was poor based on the extreme amount of assets I had to buy last round. So you can't win in every category of every ratio every round. Sometimes you have to sacrifice a couple categories to build your team. Okay, so after I review the assessment tab and know how I did, I can go to the charts. And of course, I want to look at my team performance chart. And I want to see how I'm progressing with my sales. And I'm doing quite nicely with the sales. And the profits, I see a nice jump up here in profits. My sales to profits have a nice incline compared to each other. My stock price, earnings per share, points, and a dip in year 2, and then, which is expected because year 1, as I explained, is the easiest year to earn points. So after year 1, I'm trying to earn points above 400 a round. And I can see here that my forecasting was pretty close on sedan, way off on truck. I missed about 142 cars, and luxury, I missed 252 cars. So my forecasting was a little off. So I have to keep that in mind. Okay. And you can look at the sales and then industry charts, which we'll go over separately after this. And if I want to do some research, I can go to industry and I can check out what other teams are doing. And industry also has a recap of your points per round. So if you want to see your total points earned, cumulative points, because that's what you're trying to get, the total of 2,500 cumulative points. You could go to this industry page and there's a lot of teams here, so if you just control find, and then you can type in your company, and then you can quickly see where you're at. And I see that my points for each round pretty consistent, my revenues, and how I built my car. So I can also look at the top company to see how they can improve as well. So then you can just review your competitors and kind of see where you're at each round. Okay. Then you can review financials. It does not really help you too much here, but everything's backed up if you want to kind of, and some students actually put these into a spreadsheet, and then based on their pro forma financials they get developed in the finance page, can actually predict what their points will be next round, just following the formulas for the simulation. Okay, and then you head back up to your sales page. So now on my sales page, I'm going to have to try to redesign the car. And again, I'm trying to make a car that is better than the previous round, because customer expectations have increased, as customers' expectations tend to do, and I want to make sure that I can get a higher profit margin. And like I had said many times before, I like to use the student user guide to get information about forecasting and information about marketing. So we're working on year 4 here, and I can see what the average car sales would be for each of, and this is year 4 here is what I'm looking at. So this is not going to guarantee what your sales are, but this is just an average of what the sales would be if everybody made the same exact vehicle. So if we can make a better vehicle, more advertising, better features, lower price, you're going to sell more, and it's going to steal market share for somebody else. So it's just it's a guideline. And I looked to see what I did last year, so I'm going to put this up to 4,000, but I might adjust some characters here to improve my profit margin. So my goal is to increase my profit margin. First stat. And again, I wouldn't copy my numbers here because I'm pretty much just throwing them in pretty quickly. So probably would not be a good advice to follow the numbers I set forth, because what I'm doing here is I'm trying to improve my profit margin as much as possible. So one reason I can increase my vehicle characteristics is because I put money into the operational cost reductions, which help reduce the cost of making the vehicle, so I can afford better and more features. But I always want this profit margin to go up, so sometimes I might have to lower a couple of features to get that higher profit margin I'm seeking. But this is going to definitely reduce the amount of demand as I'm making the vehicle. Because it's going to increase the cost of the vehicle. So here I have almost no improvement in so that's not good. So I don't want to make a vehicle with no improvement. So I'm going to have to pull back a little bit. To get to a higher profit margin. Okay. So now that I have made sure I increase my profit margins, I'm going to have to do my marketing analysis. Well, the marketing takes a long time. It's pretty tedious. I didn't want to make you wait as I entered my marketing data, but I entered it in, and I basically used the student user guide as a template of what money I should put into that advertising. Now coming into the production here, luckily I don't have to make buy a new plant, so it's going to save me some money. But I'm going to increase my investments, my operational investments for this round. And here I'll need to buy a new production plant. And again, I'm just randomly selecting these, so you need to decide what's right for your company. Luckily here I don't have to buy a production plant, so that's going to save me some money. And I'll put this into my operations. Here I need a production plant. So I am just building the full capacity of the production plant. It may not be the smartest idea, but I want to, hopefully if I could sell everything I build, my capacity utilization will be higher. So now coming into the last round, the last area here, I'm going to go down to the bottom. So you have a nice surplus. So I'm going to use that to pay down some debt. You see that lowers my interest rate, and I'll buy back some stock. Okay, and then I'll complete the round for year 4. And you can always go back in to review your game and make changes, of course, afterwards. But let's go now switch and look at the team results for the industry. Okay, so now if we look at, this is the entire class. So we see that the net profits continue to go up. And we had 4 teams here that broke, actually, the number of teams that broke 100 million in net profits. And these teams are really who are doing very well. And if we look at total points, we see that we have one team here with 700 points. So the go-getters really turned it around. So they had a couple of rounds there where they weren't doing so well, and they were able to turn around and make a huge comeback. And then we have a few teams in this 500 plus club. But remember, you're trying to just get above around 400. And the many teams that got close to that this round, which did very well. Stock price, we have 2 companies here in total stock price. Over around $57. Actually, for a few companies here, it's just hard to see some of the dots. And we had, so a number of companies, if you're above $50, I think you're doing pretty well. The $40 range is sort of doing okay, but if you're under 40, you're really not improving your profits enough for to create excitement about your stock. We have a new sales leader, XAEA12, with almost 500 million in sales. So we have a few teams here with better, over 400 million in sales, doing very well. And then earnings per share, we have a new earnings per share leader, and followed by GIF Auto and SimCar. And you can see that these also these earnings per share leaders this round are the teams that are also doing very well in points. Okay. This team was number 1 last round, but they didn't make any inputs to the simulation, so they just were flat. So if you don't enter your information into the simulation, you don't really advance much in the simulation. So there was 2 or 3 teams that didn't enter in their round information this round or were forced forward, so they just wound up being flat. Like Jake's car here, you can see it's just flat. I don't think, maybe they're just not in the class anymore participating. Okay, so there's just a quick overview of the industry. So things are going nicely with the industry. Most teams, I say 80% of the teams are on track for the full points in the simulation and are doing well. And I wish you the best luck in your completion of year 4, which is due next Thursday. I hope you found this video helpful. Talk to you soon.